Hello, this is the tutorial for the Necessary Clutch Wallet by Emmaline Bags, and I'm basically going to show you how to make one of these. This is one I've made previously with a different lock to how to the one we're putting on. The glorious thing about this particular design, you can change it up to suit whatever you want. You can put different locks on, different types of closures. You can have different shapes to the flap, all sorts, and you can also have different things inside. Now I have my credit card slots, and as you can see with this one I alternated the fabrics, which is a nice thing to do. I've got my zip pocket which opens up as so, and I've also inserted an ID holder, so you can put your driving license in there, bus pass, etc, etc. And this is also known, this bit in the middle is quite handy for storing your mobile phone. You can add little tabs with a D-ring on each end and add a strap, either buy a chain strap or make a very thin strap so that it can be like a little bag. You can do all sorts. For this purpose, this tutorial, I'm going to show you the method with 2 zip pockets, and a nice way to do this closure, this flap. As you can see, there's no difference, there's no overhang. People often make the border different to what's underneath, and they just sandwich all 3 layers together, and it looks not very good. So I'm going to show you an alternative method for the flap, so that's good to see. Now you have the initial instructions, which you need to buy from Emmaline Bags. For a short period for the tutorial, for the sew along, Janelle has very kindly said that she's going to give a discount to the group. I'm sorry if you come along and see this later and you missed out, but it's not a very expensive pattern anyway, so, and it's well worth the money. So you've got the initial pattern that you have to buy, but then there's an additional 3 patterns, which I'm going to put in the group files. And there's this one, not patterns, sorry, they're hacks. This is the one with the flap, the alternative border method, which I will be showing you. So I'll place that in the files. The ID window, that will go in the files. There's the alternative card slots that I was on about with the different coloured pockets, and the double zip tutorial, which we'll be doing. So I will place all of these in the files, and there is also some other ones, other goodies, which is the zipper tabs, which is not part of the pattern. It's nice to have the zipper tabs because it gives a nicer finish. There's also inserting the Peltex into the wallet, sorry. I will be showing you how to do that, and I'm not using Peltex. I'm using a different stabilizer, which I'll come on to in a minute. But yeah, there's this that can be helpful, and the card slots one. So they're all the different ones that can be of help. Now, the one I'm doing today, I've got, that's another thing I was going to say actually. You can make this with leather, vinyl, cork, fabric, like woven fabric, like cotton, tapestry fabric, wool. I mean, the list is endless. This can be made, it's so versatile, can just be made with so many fabrics. I've also seen it made with Craftex, that paper type fabric. So the list is absolutely endless. And if you join the NCW group, you will be able to see in the files, in all the photos, sorry, in the photos, all the different types of glorious NCWs. There is also a mini version that you can buy. It's like an add-on. That was devised by my friend Natal Webb of Lockwood and Webb. So you can actually buy that as well to make a smaller one, which I've made a couple of times, which is really nice. So without further ado, I'll talk about the pattern pieces. I have done the label tags, and I'm going to be putting them in the group files so you can access them, download them. It helps you keep track of your pattern pieces, and it makes you know that you've done all the correct pieces, that you've printed cut everything out. So I've done the external fabric, or exterior fabric should I say, in the main pattern piece D, and also the front flap. So that's what I'm doing for my external fabric. I mean, this is actually vinyl with some cotton. So yeah, but anyway, this is cotton. Then I've got my first lining, which I've done in purple. And this is going to be the lining on the main body, and also the border of the flap and the lining of the flap, and the zipper pocket. So there's quite a lot of pieces for that. Then I've got my second lining colour, which is this green. I just wanted to match up with colours with this. And this is going to be the card slots. And I've actually got some zips that are going to go on the purple, but offset the colour nicely. So that's all the fabrics, materials. And then I've got the woven interfacings. Now, I've got Shape Flex SF101, which is a medium weight interfacing. And I'm using that on the pattern D, main body, and the flap. And then I've got a lighter weight interfacing. Now, I get this from a lady called Shirley of Cracker Fabrics on Facebook. She's in the UK. And I buy her cotton woven, and it's really nice, and it's a really good price. So I buy that, and that's what I'm using here. And I'm using it for the zipper pocket lining, the zipper pocket, the card slot pockets. So that's them. And then we've got the Peltex, which we use for that part of the flap, and also for the lock part of to cover the lock prongs. And the final piece, this is, again, I got from Shirley. It's called 79F for fusible. It's a very thick card-like stabilizer. Similar to Buckram Heavy or Decaville 1. It's very, very firm, and I'm going to use this for the main body that will actually be this part, just to give it some structure. The first ever NCW I made with fabric, as the pattern suggested, and I was very disappointed because I used and did exactly what the pattern said, and this is all fabric as well. And because I didn't use any strong stabilizers, it just crushes down. There's no substance to the pattern, to the wallet at all. So I was very disappointed, and I've never done that since. I've always used the Peltex and so on to give it some body. So that's that for those pieces. I'm doing a heart-shaped lock today, and that's another thing with the pattern. You get two different sizes of the flap border, and one that's slightly narrower, and that's because the heart lock is slightly bigger than a normal lock. So if you're using a heart lock, you use the bigger pieces, and if you're using a normal lock or different, you just pick and choose which you're going to use. But I'm using a heart lock. I've got two zipper pulls. I've got some rivets because I make my life easier. I do not try and sew down these sides, which would just be horrendous. I rivet and they stay put and they're brilliant. If you have to sew, I'm afraid then you'll have to sew. Good luck to you. But I use rivets, and I've got my bag label as usual. So that's all the pieces we need to get our wallet underway. And I shall come back to you shortly with the first section. So we've done step 1, which was to prepare the pattern pieces, cut them out. And step 2 was to fuse all the interfacings onto the fabrics. And now this is step 3, which is to make the flap. Now with the alternative method that we're doing, we actually need 2 of these pieces, which is pattern piece B. Depending on which one you've chosen, whether it's the narrower one or the wider one like mine, you need 2 pieces. And you want them to match because you will slightly see the other side around the edge. As I said, I've infused the interfacings to the backs of the pattern pieces, and I've fused the Peltex to one of the pattern pieces. This will be the one that's on the underside, so like that, because Peltex, when it's dry, it can cause wrinkling. It hasn't yet, but when you turn bags inside out and so on, it can cause them to wrinkle, and that's what can happen. So fuse your Peltex to the piece that's going to be on the back of these 2. And what we need to do with these 2, first of all, with right sides together, is to stitch around here, just around here, nowhere else, and stitch a few millimeters away from the Peltex, so it's not too difficult to turn it shortly to do the next step. So just stitch a little bit away from the Peltex. So we've stitched around quite close. That's not the wrong side, that's just where the interfacing hasn't quite gone to the edge. So the sides are matching, but we've done that. So now we're going to clip the corners as close as we can without cutting into the stitching. And then just carefully clip the curves. And then I need to turn right sides out. And get my ironing pad. Because we need to really press it well. It's time to turn my steam off because it's burning me. Right, so make sure that you're very happy with your pressing. Right, now we've pressed that well, we need to just base stitch around this raw edge. So I've basted around the raw edges, and now we need to sandwich everything together. So get your exterior piece first, and remembering which side your Peltex is fixed to, you want to make sure that that's face down. And then get your lining piece and lay it on top, right side down. And I'm just going to clip that together. And we need to stitch around the edge at 1/4 of an inch seam allowance, I think. I'm just trying to see if it says anywhere. No, it doesn't say, so I'm going for 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. I think that's the best thing. It's more likely to be 1/4 of an inch. Okay, so I've I beg your pardon, I've stitched around with using a 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. Everything is a 1/4 of an inch seam allowance unless stated. And now we just need to cut some notches where the curves are to help with the laying flat. If you don't cut the notches, then it doesn't sit nice and flat, and the seams are very bulky and not very nice. You can hear my dog behind me snorting and sniffing, and he's come to see what I'm doing. Make sure you don't cut into the stitching. Very important. And pay particular attention to the curves. What I do is trim the seam allowance. Like we do with corners of our bags. And I'll just do the same along the top there. Right, and then turn it right side out. And this is where the magic happens, in that you have a nice flap with a nice edge. It looks lovely, doesn't it? Even if I say so myself. And you just need to press it flat so the seams are nice and crisp. And you will see that obviously we're going to have to top stitch around there shortly. The other thing it doesn't say in the pattern is to put anything inside, but this is very thin and there's no strength to it at all, so it does need something in there. At least I don't think it mentions it. I should check really, because no, nothing goes in there. Yeah, no. So I'm using some Decoville Light. You can use, I think Peltex is a bit too heavy. Maybe the Buckram, or you know, this, but again that's quite solid. I like Decoville Light. I'm putting the fusible side down because I don't know if it wrinkles and I don't want to risk it wrinkling on the top. Oh, wrong way. I have used the pattern piece and I've cut right down, so it should fit. If not, you just have to trim a little here and there to get it to fit. Yeah, that's a nice fit, I think. Just check it lay flat. Oh, it's this butting against the seams. I want it to sit above or below the seam edge, not in it. I just want to trim that a little bit more because it's making the panel, the flat warp. So you just fiddle with it until you're happy with the fit, which I am now. And I've also cut it below this seam line so that it will bend more. I'm going to actually cut that a little bit shorter because I don't want it being compromised with the seam when we stitch the panel to the body. I don't want it to have a difficulty folding down because that's in the actual seam. Perfect. See, so there's a good gap now, so the seam allowance will fit in there, no problem. And that's ready for the next step. And the final step for the flap is to top stitch around the edge. If you're installing a magnetic snap, now is the time to install it. I'm going to be adding a twist lock, so I'm now going to top stitch around this edge also. Right, it's time to add the lock now, only I'm not very happy with the lock I've got. I just tried to take it off and I had to use pliers to undo the lock mechanism, and it's very hard to do, so it's not working properly at all. So I'm going to see if this will fit, because I really would like to use the heart. Yes, it seems it does. Brilliant. So I can still use the heart because the lock for that oval one works perfectly in here. Fandabby-dozing. So we have to add this part of the lock. Now, this is the part I never really enjoy because it takes quite a bit to create the hole and it's a lot of faffing about. So you'll have to bear with me. You may get quite bored watching me mess about with this. You can fast forward. That's the beauty of fast forward. So I want to make sure that I'm getting the lock in the central place. There's nothing worse than having one that's off centre and it sticks out like a sore thumb. So from there to there is 5 inches. So there's 5 inches. 2.5 inch mark is there. And I also want this to be central, thinking about it. In fact, I'll get put 2 marks in and then draw a line for the centre. Oh goodness, and then measure as I meant to do. That's just over 1.5 inches. So that's the centre point. So we use this as our hole maker, and I'm making sure I've got the points of the heart in the right place, and I mark for the screw hole and the centre hole. So this is what I've got drawn. So just to recap, I measured there to there, which was 5 inches. So at 2.5 inches I marked a dot and I did another one so that I had a dead straight line, it wasn't going off. Then I measured from there to there and got the halfway point, and then I sat the washer like so. Yeah, so that's where it sits. So I'm happy with its placement. If I wasn't, I'd redo it. And that's, I'll just rub out the line and redo it. So I want to get a punch hole, and this is a nice size to do the holes with. I should get my polymat thinking about it, very naughty. Goodness me, takes some doing. I don't really have the strength in my hands. Nearly there. Yeah, that's there because it's stuck. And again on the other side. Nearly, because it's got the Peltex to go through, plus that other stabiliser I used, plus the fabric, plus the interfacing. There's a lot for it to go through, and when you're not particularly strong anymore, it makes it even harder. So that's the holes for the screws punched. checking the placement's right. A bit late now anyway, but yeah, lovely. And now we need to get this hole out. So I start by using my screw punch. Oh, it's such hard work. Oh. Okay, just about there. Same on the other side. Right, I've lost the strength now. I can't do any more of that, so I get my craft knife and carefully cut. Right, you can see what I'm doing, and I'm not, I just can't let you sit and watch me do this. So I'm going to pause it and come back and show you when I've fiddled about and got the hole the right size. Okay, you saw the state of me. I'm absolutely covered in white bits. It looks like it's been snowing on me. I've really cut quite a large hole, so it should be okay. You're probably thinking, oh my goodness, look at the state of that, but this will cover it. So you don't want the fabric to be poking out there, you see. So I'm doing that, and I get my handy seam ripper because it's handy for poking everything down, because you want the screw holes to come through. You want to tuck the fabric down the sides. And this is why I had to go off and spend ages getting the hole right. It's worth taking your time and doing it correctly. And now we get to our washer eventually. Oh my goodness me. Put her over the screw holes and then find what you did with the screws. Oh my goodness me. They're here somewhere. Put that away before I get cut. Okay, there they are. I was having to feel for it all, just couldn't see it. So, get the screw sitting nicely in the hole. You don't want it to go in diagonally or anything, you want it to go straight down. So it can be a bit fiddly to get it to do that. I did all that and then it came straight out, look. Right. Don't screw it fully tight. And what did I do with the other? Oh, it's in the middle there. Oh my goodness me. So, about screwing the other one in. So we've got both of them screwed in, and then you tighten the screws up as much as you can. And voila. And you know, for a moment I had an awful dread that I put one upside down. Don't know why. But there's the lock installed, and I shall use an iron just to get those white lines out. We put that aside for now, and we're actually still on step 3. I suppose you could say 3B. This is for the clutch wallet exterior now. And you get your exterior piece, and you need to mark for the other part of the lock. So we need to mark for the centre first of all, which is 16 inches long. Yeah. And we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 inches up. So 1, 2, 3, 4.5. This is the dead center point. So knowing we've got the center point there, I just need to mark 2.5 inches down from this edge. And where I've drawn that line, so now we get our piece of Peltex that we've got ready. Switch my iron on, and I've used a heat pen, so these are all going to disappear. So if I quickly grab a Sharpie permanent pen and not mark too dark, because I don't want it going through to the other side. There, just the little notches, because we're going to put this in place right there, ready for the prongs. And you have to measure the right place, so I haven't wasted my time doing all that. You do have to measure to put the Peltex in the right place. And yeah, that's adhered or fused or whatever you like to call it. Stuck. And now I need to mark that spot again, so I'm just going to do that line, and then 2.5 inches from the edge we get the washer. I had to check it was the right one then, the right lock. Right, I have to check where the prongs will be when they're... Right. So, you need to find the centre of your washer. Now, my lock doesn't fit equally. Really irritates me. It goes in one side or the other, so I have to sort of forget the one end. So I've got the middle one here, so I use that one to mark for the prongs. And we need to cut our holes for the prongs now. But we're not installing it yet, because if we install it, we're going to have a problem sewing it. So we just needed to mark for the holes, and so that I can find them again later, I'm just going to mark little lines with my Sharpie. They're not going to be seen once the lock's on. I just want to be able to see them easily. So I've just marked there. I don't know if you can see them there and there. So we've got that part made, and I mean, it does show to add it, but I don't add it, not yet. Wait until you've sewn around, etc. Then slip it in. Honestly, don't do it yet like the instructions say. It would just be an absolute pain. So now we need to place the flap, and we've got this end for the lock, so the flap's going up this end, the opposite end of where the lock goes, and it needs to go face down. So I'm going to turn that around, and I use my cutting board to measure things as well. So we've got 16 inches and this is 8 inches, so it stands to reason that it's going to be 4 inches either side. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, yeah. So I'm happy with it being there. And don't worry, I know I've got a slightly shorter, but it's not too important at this stage because the seam's going to hide that anyway. So we do that, and we're just going to I'm just looking at the, yeah, we've got the lining in place, and now we have the lining piece. So we're sandwiching in between, and we need to place this down on top, and I'm going to pin all the way around, but again, you don't need to watch me, and I'm going to leave a gap this end. I'll come back and stitch it when I've got it pinned. You'll see me stitching it next. We need to leave a 4-inch gap for opening, and we're stitching at 1/4 inch seam allowance. And when we come to where the flap is, I'm going to triple stitch because it's going to be a high tension area. So I've stitched all the way around, leaving a gap for opening, and then I've cut notches on the curves. And oh, you'll have to excuse hearing the children screaming outside. They're not my children. So yeah, I'm sorry about that if you get ear-piercing noises. They're on school holidays. So you turn this the right side out. Double check that you've caught the flap in fully, which I have, thankfully. Okay, so, and now we need to do that curve. We need to press her. It's a bit strange actually, because I normally make a vinyl one and it's normally a lot stiffer at this stage, so it feels a bit weird that it's so flexible and thin. But that's where this product will come in shortly. Okay, so I've pressed it and now I want to top stitch all the way around. Oh no, I don't want to top stitch all the way around. They're saying to stitch, top stitch. Ah, no. They are, but first of all, beg your pardon, I'm sorry. Goodness knows, I'm not very professional, am I? Oh. Before we close it, we need to insert this in, and if you look, it's a nice width. It's rather long though, so yeah, it's a nice width, but it's a bit long, so I do need to shorten it. I'm very nervous about using this product. I've never used it. It's the first time. So I'm a bit worried it's going to be too stiff. But we shall find out. You don't know till you try. Make sure that's even. Now it's on an angle, see, so. Okay. Cut. And this is really firm, as you can probably hear and see, and I'm a bit dubious about the corners eventually sort of wearing through the fabric, so I'm just going to sort of round the corners off so that they're not sharp and pointed, just making them slightly curved. Okay, so if I look at that, that looks pretty good. Now this is fusible, and I don't want to fuse it to the outside where it's going to be seen in case it wrinkles. So I'm going to fuse it to the inside because it won't be seen on the inside. So we have to curve it to get it in through the hole, because this is actually, before I measure it, it's 7.5 inches wide and 8 inches long. So you slip that in. I'm wondering if it's still too long. Let's see if once I've got it in and it lays flat, I'll be able to tell. That's better. Now, I'm going to imagine closing this up. And that feels a nice sturdy wallet actually. I like this product. Feels good. So I want to make sure I have got it central, that it's not too far one way or the other. Yeah, I'm pleased with that. And now I'm going to iron it to fuse it in place. It's not necessary because we're going to be stitching along here, so that will anchor it in place anyway. But I wanted to see how the fusing works. Oh, that's not bad. Okay, I'm going to press this in now. It's really important to make sure that this part is really neat, because it's going to be the front edge of your purse. Let me show you where it's going to be. It's going to be that part there. So it does need to be pretty much perfect. Okay, so we're going to top stitch all the way around, and that will be made. No, we're not. We're going to add nearly got caught. I've done it before. We're going to add the lock first. Oh, I would have not been happy. There's the lock. And my craft knife, because we've installed that other product, and oh, it's okay actually, it's fused to the other side, so I don't have to worry about putting new holes in. And looking for the marks that I made earlier, which I can see nice and easily. And ordinarily I would place, oh, it's a bit difficult, so I would place something on top, like some more Peltex or Decaville or something, or fusible fleece. But because I've got this stiff card-like product, and as I said earlier, if you buy from Shirley at Crackerjack Fabrics, oh my goodness me, I'll put a link at the end anyway, but if you buy from Shirley, it's 79F. I will list the products I've used somewhere, whether it's on the video or in the group. I will list everything I use so that you know if you want to do exactly the same. Now I'm going to top stitch. So I've top stitched all the way around. I need to snip the thread. I'm happy with my top stitching, and the gap has been closed, and we're ready to proceed. And if I did this, that's how it's going to look. The next step is step 4, which is making the pocket pieces. So it's going to be the card slot pocket first. Right, now we're on step 4, making the pocket pieces, and we need to get our card slot pockets. So we get our first piece, and we have our disappearing ink pen, and I need to get my longer ruler, or my wider ruler should I say. Oh, I've got a bit of a fight for it. Sorry about that, I should have been prepared. Okay, so we start with the 8 by 17 inch pieces, and we work on the back, and we're starting from left to right, and the first line we mark on the back is at 2.5 inches. Like so. And the next one will be 1.75. So 1 3/4 inches. Put this upside down, I just realised. 1 3/4 inches. Then 2 1/4 inches. All this is in the pattern. You don't have to remember what I'm saying. Then another 1 3/4. Two 1/4. And 1 3/4. So you should have 6 lines in total. 1 2 3 4 5 6. So that's all the lines that I've marked, and I'd better turn my iron on because we're going to be needing that. And we need to flip it over so it's the right side up, and we want to fold the rectangle over on the first line. So we're bringing the right sides together. Just finger press at this stage, and then we're going to fold on the next line with the wrong sides together. And then fold on it. So we're doing a concertina basically. You want to make sure that the sides are staying straight as well, so you're not going off at an angle. And the final one is that one. And now I can press them all, because we don't need to worry about seeing the lines. You really want to press good creases into them, and then I'll show you. So we end up a bit hot like that on the back. So that's how we have it. And now we're going to top stitch along these 3 lines. So here are all the pieces top stitched, and then you just do a basting stitch either side to anchor them in place, and then you make another one, which I've already done, so you have 2 of them. And then what you need to do is to make sure, oh goodness me, make sure that this is 4.5 inches high. So you don't cut off from the top, and you get your ruler, and cut. Do the same with the other one. And that's just a little bit wonky on the top there, so I just want to even that up. That's it. I can see that was just going up a little bit there. So I haven't actually cut off the top, I've just trimmed it. So you end up with 2 halves, and now we need to place them together, right sides together, and stitch along the bottom using a 1/4 inch seam allowance. So I've stitched along a 1/4 inch seam allowance, opened it up, and I've pressed the seam open. And now that you should end up with a piece that's 8.5 inches by 8 inches. So I'm just going to check. So yes, it's 8 inches across, and it's 8.5 inches long. So I'm pleased with that. And we now need to divide the, to mark a centre, a line down the centre, and I know as it's 8 inches wide that the line will be 4 inches deep. So I'm just going to draw a line, and then we just stitch from there down to that part. I'm also going to quickly add my label, and we'll go from there. So we've stitched down the centre, and I've put my label there. If you don't use a label, that's fine. If you do, put it where you like, but that's where I put it. if you may have preferred earlier on to have put your label on here at that point before you stitched everything together. I should have mentioned that, I'm sorry, but you can choose where you put the label, obviously. And now we get the other part of our credit card slot. It's the credit card slot pocket, and it's 8 by 8.5 inches. So because you've measured the other one, they will fit together perfectly. And you just stitch across the top and the bottom at 1/4 inch seam allowance. Don't stitch the sides. So we've stitched across the top and the bottom, and now we turn it right side out. Because you've got 1/4 inch seam allowance, you don't need to trim the seam allowance. And we need to press it need to snip a thread. And press the bottom. And now we want to top stitch along there and then just base stitch down the sides. And yes, I have stitched the top of my label, which I meant to do. It's not an accident. Okay, so it's top stitched, and I did do that on purpose. I just think it's nice to have the green stitching there. Just, I personally like it. So that's our credit card pocket ready. Just snip the threads. Now I'm not worried about this bit here because that's going to be hidden by the seam, so you don't have to worry about the rough edges, and if they don't look quite so even. I've just been a bit not so good there. In fact, oh, that's interfacing that's overlapping, so that's okay. So I can just trim that off if I want to. But anyway, it will fit nicely into the pockets. Next thing we're doing is the zipper pocket. Now we've come to the zippered pocket, and for that we've got 2 zips because I'm making the double zip tutorial. You'll find this tutorial in the group files. If you don't want to do 2 zips, just do the one, that's fine, in which case you can go to Emmaline, the Emmaline Bags tutorial, and follow the steps on there for making the zipper pocket. Right, so what we have is 2 pieces of what we would call exterior, although it's on the interior. For the purposes of making the zipper pocket, we're calling these bigger pieces exterior pieces, and then we've got 4 lining pieces. These will be inside the zipper pocket, and then we've got 4 zipper tabs and 2 zips. To make the zipper tabs, I folded these in half so the short edges were meeting. Pressed it, opened it up, then folded them into each other, folded the 2 short ends together, pressed, and then like that, and pressed. So I did that for all 4. And what we do here is I get some double-sided tape, my best friend, and we put a little bit on each section, top and bottom on each side, so like that, and peel the backing off, and we get the zipper tape, and make sure it's a raw end that you've cut the metal stopper off, which I have already done, and we place that in the middle and make sure that the zip butts up against the folded part, and then fold it down, and we just stitch across the top. So I shall do that and return. Okay, so we've sewn the zipper tab on to the end of the zip, and then we turn the zip round, and making sure you don't make the same as mistake as I did on the first one, move the zip down past where you're going to cut, and you need to, from the end of the zipper tab there, measure 6.5 inches of zipper tape. Like so. Just going to move that a bit closer so I can make sure I get the cut right. Yeah, the zip was up here and I just cut, and it was like, oh my goodness. So I had to put it back on and make sure that it matched up. So yeah, a silly thing to do. Rookie error, so to speak. Right, just... Okay, so normally you'd do the sealed, you'd have the zip sealed, but obviously because I messed up and I've shown you the other way, and it's like, oh, never mind. Anyway, we get some double-sided tape again. I'm having a bit of a nightmare today. It's been a very noisy day. The children have been shouting and yelling and fighting and all sorts outside, right outside my window, all day. And dogs have been barking and setting my dog off barking. Doorbells ringing, phones ringing, lawnmowers going, you name it. Every time I've gone to make this tutorial, something's happened, and it's taken me all day just to do this little tiny bit. And now there's a bird out there singing, and I don't know if you're picking it up or not, but if I had a firework now, I'd go and let it off to scare it away. I think I'm just super sensitive to noise now today. Okay, so double-sided tape, and carefully lay the zip on the end, making sure the zip's closed, and bring the folded edge down, and we want to stitch across there as well. So there's the zip prepared, and here's one I made earlier. So there's the two zips made, and what we need to do now is just trim the zipper tab edges to be in line with the edge of the zip. Whilst we were eating our barbecue at dinner time, we had a man out the back lawn mowing, and then his daughter was tap dancing in the conservatory, which was extremely loud. So yeah, it's been a very noisy day today. I'm hoping the evening will be peaceful. So there you go. So that's prepared, and that's another one prepared. I think the purple and green look nice together. So now we can prepare our zipper pockets. So we get one of the lining pieces, and I'm going to put the double-sided tape along the edge. I'm not quite happy with the placement of that. It's not on the edge enough. I like it to be right up against the edge. Otherwise you risk the double-sided tape poking out near the zipper teeth. There we have it. I do prefer the narrower tape, like this, but for some reason the batch I bought this time is different to the one I normally buy. I normally buy sticks to, and it's brilliant, doesn't gum up or anything, but I got, the Amazon sent me this, it's not sticks to, it's something else, and oh my goodness, the needle gums up really badly, so I have to wait for my new supply of sticks to. So I have to use the thicker, the wider tape, but never mind. Anyway, I digress. I put the tape along, we get our zip pull to the left, and we place it centrally, so there's just a little gap at each end of about 1/4 of an inch. So we do that, and then we get the exterior piece. I'm just going to put some more zipper tape, or sorry, double-sided tape down. Pull the backing off. And then get the exterior piece and the longest side, and place that down on top, making sure the sides match. And then stitch along 1/4 inch seam allowance. So we've sewn in place, and we just finger press the seams out of the way. And we then repeat as we did before by getting a lining piece, putting double-sided tape along the edge, and you want to make sure that everything lines up down the side as well. I think you can just go over a smidgen actually. Not fully happy with the placement. That's better. So that they're the same amount each side. And then more tape. I mean, you don't have to use tape, you can be using pins or clips. But if you've been watching my tutorials, you know me and my love for double-sided tape. It's a real romance, you know. So there we go. And then the other exterior piece, and very carefully going along the edge, and then stitch again as before. And move the zip pull out of the way. So we've attached the other side, sewn it together, and there we have a very neat pocket top. See how the zipper tabs give you that nice neat finish. And now we're just going to top stitch either side, making sure that we have the lining pieces like so, and we'll top stitch on each side. So I've top stitched very carefully with my zipper foot because I just couldn't be bothered to swap the feet over. And now we're going to do the other side. Now, depending on how you want your zips to go, if you want your zips to be like that, then you need to put the zipper pull to the left as before. If you want your zips pulling in the same direction, you're going to need to put your zip to the right, your zipper pull to the right. And we get a lining piece as before, and some zipper tape, some double-sided tape. Keep calling it zipper tape. Pull the backing off. And now we need to put some more double-sided tape all the way along. Like so. Try this end. No, not wanting to come off at all. Got it. There we go. And we get the pocket that we've already made. And now the way you look at it is we want our zipper pulls to be in the same direction. So just having a think. Yeah, so we laying it out like that. We bring this piece up and lay along the edge. And we stitch across. Okay, so as before, we fold these down. Now, I'm going to top stitch this piece now, just to make my life easier, because the final top stitch is quite awkward. So I'm just going to top stitch along here. So we've top stitched along there, and now the final piece is to get the last piece of lining, double-sided tape, and lay the zip centrally along the edge. Then get your trusty double-sided tape again. And then we're bringing this piece up to meet the zip, like so, so that you've basically got that, and we're going to stitch along there. Okay, so that's stitched across, and now we're going to have to do our final row of top stitching. So the best thing to do, I found, was to open the zip up and stitch from inside this, and you can literally move it from like that. So that's what I suggest. So I'm trying to help you see what I'm doing. Move the zipper pull out of the way. Oh, it's fiddly. That's it. So I don't know how much you'll have seen on the other camera for me stitching this, but I stitched inside there and moved that backwards and forwards. It's the best way to do it. So you're now left with this, or I hope so anyway, for the next stage to begin. Now we need to excuse me, we need to pin or clip the sides together. And once we've pinned both sides, we're going to stitch down the sides, but I'm just making sure the zips are open. Make sure the zips inside are open, and you want to stitch down both sides, but each time you come to the zip, stop an inch either side. Stop and start, so that you're not stitching the actual zip. You leave them free and it will become clear. So yeah, I shall do that now. Okay, so we've stitched and started and stopped each side of the zipper tabs, and now we turn it right side out. So you've got this like so, and then tuck the lining of the zipper pocket, tuck them in and push the zipper tab ends out, and this is why we didn't stitch. And I know it looks rough and messy, but there's a method to the madness. You will see. Do not trim them, because you're going to rely on the rivets catching these and holding them still. So don't trim them. Going to get my pliers to pull that through, because it wouldn't come out. That's it. I might have to coax it out. So I do trim the little threads though, because those pesky things have a habit of popping up and showing up where you don't want them to. So just trim your threads. Like so. So making sure that lining is laying flat. You definitely want it to lay flat. Both sides. So you'll find that you want to lap one inside the other. They just go past each other a little bit, which is good. I mean, you want that because they're going to both catch in the middle. So just make sure it's all even all the way around. And then, so you can see in there, if the light shines on it. But yeah, so that's what you want. And you end up with that. And that, once it's attached inside the wallet, will look like that. And that's why I like the zipper tabs, zipper pulls being in the same place. I like uniformity. So that's that. The next step I'll be back is step 5, which is attaching the pocket pieces to the clutch wallet exterior. Okay, now we're on section 5, which is to attach the pocket pieces to the clutch wallet exterior. And the first thing we need to do is to attach the card slot pocket. And we need to line this up, and I do it by eye. If you want to measure, by all means do, but I like the look of that, and I'm just going to trim these threads. Oh goodness. Oh, threads can be so annoying. Okay. So, making it central. Goodness me, these threads are persistent. Got you. And obviously you want to make sure if you're using a label it's the right way up underneath the flap. And so I'm happy with that placement. And if we fold the sides in, and you can also see there that there's the right same amount of space either side. And I'm pulling it quite tight. I really want it to be very tight against that, to make sure that we catch the pocket, credit card pocket sides in. Now when we do the vinyl, it's quite bulky. I'll show you what I did before. It is quite bulky to catch it all in. You don't need to do it quite so badly with this because it's thinner and neater. So I shall stitch down the sides and come back to you. And stitch at 1/4 inch seam allowance. And do both sides. Okay, so I've stitched either side, and if you look inside, the raw edge has gone. It's all hidden inside here. Just make sure you pull it really tight and incorporate everything in. 1/4 inch seam allowance. So once you've done that, you open it up. Now I've already measured this pocket. I measured the halfway point and then drew a line, and then I drew a line 1/2 inch either side and then 1/4 inch in from the edge, and that will be my stitch area, ignoring the central line. And you've got the centre line there from the credit card pocket, so you just want to make sure that you're lining it up correctly. And I'm happy with that placement. And I just use a card slot to hold it in place. Check again. Yeah. Yeah. And now I'm going to stitch around there. Okay, so we've stitched around the box, and that's how it looks on the reverse. And I'm just going to use my iron to get rid of the pen markings. And we can remove the clips, and the next section will be back to attach the side flaps. Okay, we're at the end stage now and I've clipped these, and I've literally done this by eye. I've not measured or anything else. I thought that's where I'd like the pockets to be, and I'm happy with their placement. However, if you're not someone that feels confident to do things by eye, you need to measure, and you've basically got measurements where it says to measure 3.5 inches from there, and again on the other side because I'm going to the dotted line, not this part, but the actual box that I've done. And going from the box to there, it's 3.5 centimetres. If I do it anywhere else, it's not going to be 3.5 centimetres. So wherever you find 3.5 centimetres, draw the line. And then you will find where you're meant to clip your side bits. However, if I do that, it's not quite where I want them to be. If you notice, it's different. Now, if I drew the lines at the other end, it would be the same. But I want my lines to be where I've put them. So, but that's how you do it. I mean, it's that simple. You literally just draw those lines and clip. But as I said, just need to get those lines off now. Iron's not very hot at the minute. I want to do it by eye, and I just sort of settled on what I felt comfortable doing. So I sort of clicked them and then looked, and if you look there, there's this and there's this distance here. It's different, it doesn't match up. Probably won't get it to match now where I wanted it. I had it exactly where I wanted it, and if you look there, it all looks nice and even, so I'm happy with the placement. Yeah, now this is where the fun begins, and you need to place for your rivets. So you get your rivet punch or whatever you use to punch rivets. I have one of these which you can use. You've also got the hand tool. I'm not sure where they are at the moment. Sorry, I can't find them. I'm not sure which box they're in. Oh, the leather punch up there. Yeah, you've got the hand tool like this, where you bang it. But I don't tend to get on with those as much as I do with my screw punch. It just suits me. And we all have our own likes and dislikes. I'm not sure if I showed you the leather punch properly then. I have a feeling I may have been off camera shot, so I'm just going to get it out again and show you in case I didn't show you properly. But that's the leather punch, and you hit it with a hammer. Anyway, I'm just going to check the measurements that it's open, so 3.5. I'm checking the measurement here. It's 3.5 and 3.5, so yeah, they are Correct. Now what I do is do you know what? I'm not going to use that one. I'm going to use this machine because that's a bit fiddly on there, and I think this will be easier. So I get this, and I'm just feeling for where I want it to go. Right. And I wanted to make sure, I'll show you the part that I wanted to make sure I went through. Sorry, I've got to take it out of shot a minute to... That's it. Just trying to get the rivet through, and I couldn't do it the way I was trying to. Trying to get the rivet on to the rivet cap onto the rivet. I think I've mixed and matched different rivets from different companies, and I'm finding that they don't always fit onto each other, marry each other very well. That one's got it. And then I put it on my green machine. I just want to make sure I'm happy where that placement is. And so we've placed the one rivet on. It's a bit fiddly. And I made sure that I gripped this piece, that it went through there, and that's really got hold of it then, and that's not going anywhere. I shall do the rest and I shall come back when I've done them. And here we have the necessary clutch wallet. And lock her, and there she is. Very happy. And she's a little bit, she'll soften up with a little bit of wear. They're always very stiff to start with. I did do 2 rivets on each one. I just wanted to do an extra one. I just felt it needed it, so I had that one, and then I measured 1 inch from the center of the rivet down, 1/4 of an inch in, and that's where I placed them. So as you will see, stitching that box stitches the lining in place. And we've got our credit card slots, and we've got our little pockets behind for our notes. So very versatile and very useful, and she has a slot there for the mobile phone as well. So yeah, I hope you've managed to make yours with success. without any issue. Please feel free to ask on the group page if you need any help. That's what we're here for, to help you. So enjoy making yours. I shall look forward to seeing them. Please post them in the group. It's my reward for doing the sew-alongs, is to see your work. So please, please, please post your photos. No one will be mean, I promise. Happy stitching. Bye.